On today's episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Draft, you get me, and I'm going to give you second round steals to look out for. Stay tuned. Hey, everyone, thank you for making us your first listen. Big shout out to all the first time listeners, long time listeners, clicked on the video podcast on accent. We want to thank you. Today's podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's get right to it. Second round steals. I want to talk to you about first KJ Simpson. Now, he's probably the third most talked about guy in the draft from the University of Colorado. Obviously, Cody Williams being the hotter name. Tristan Da Silva is getting a lot of buzz as also a first round pick potentially. But I want to talk to you about KJ Simpson. Now, KJ Simpson, he's a little on the smaller side, but he's a dynamic scoring point guard. And he played really, really well, and at times was the best player on the floor for the Colorado Buffaloes this year. He goes at about 6 feet tall. If you have an idea in your head of who you think, if you think he plays like, he reminds me a lot of Scottie Pippen Jr. Now, ultimately, I think he's going to be a second round pick. He can score the basketball. I think he's about an average playmaker, but the young man has improved every year at Colorado. He shot the ball well, and he's a very good shooter off of the dribble. Now, I don't know where he's going to go. Ultimately, maybe he is in the 40s. I have him in the 40s. Maybe he's in the 50s, but I think he's a good change of pace point guard, good scoring point guard off the bench. And he just reminds me of a guy that if he ever gets that opportunity, he's definitely going to seize the moment. He's tough, man. And he does have his flaws. Again, he's on the smaller side, but I will say the main thing that he does have to improve on is he has to improve on his ability to finish at the rim. He wasn't very good on floaters, and that's a really big concern for a guy of his stature. He only shot 29% on floaters, so he's primarily going to be a jump shooter. He shot 43% according to Synergy on all of his jump shots, and really he's at 43% off of the dribble. But he's a dynamic scoring guard. I think he played pretty well at the combine. I think he's ready for the NBA. Third guard at worst. And I think, when it gets ugly, depending on where he's at, but, if it gets ugly towards the end of the year, he's definitely going to be a guy that's going to play and he's going to make the most of his opportunities. Another guy that I want to mention, and I'm not even going to read any stats to you because you know what? His stats are just ugly. But the young fella has a lot of talent, and realistically, he's probably about 3 years away from making a contribution. And ultimately, I think he will end up in the G League next year, whether he's drafted or not. He'll get a two-way deal because he has a lot of potential. Excuse me. And that's AJ Johnson. AJ Johnson is about 6'5", rail thin. He looks like he's about 15 years old. And the young man he can play basketball. It's more of when I watch him, and, the stats, the numbers, again, like I mentioned before, they're not pretty, but you just get a feel for his talent. And his talent jumps off of the board. At least the film does. Now, I will say this again. The numbers, the stats, they don't look good. But I feel like his opportunity to play in Australia was good for him because he learned discipline, in a sense where he just couldn't go out there and hoop. So I know some guys, they go overseas, they think they're ball handlers, they come back, they're not ball handlers. He got the opportunity, in particular with the coaching change, when Jason Tatum's father took over, he had the opportunity to handle the ball. And he showed flashes of what he could do. Now, again, he's real thin. I don't have his measurements in front of me, but I want to say he's about 170, and that is soaking wet, jerseys falling off. Wind blows too hard, he may go too. But he can handle the ball. Some people, and again, if you kind of squint, he kind of looks like Kevin Porter Jr. as a skinny ball handler, and he's crafty. Now, again, he's another guy that at the combine he played pretty well. So he's just he's someone to look out for. I think he has a lot of talent. And again, it's in this kind of draft, you want to maybe potentially swing for the fences or maybe stash a guy. And I think he could bear you could reap the benefits of his talent. He just needs to, mature physically. His jump shot, it looks okay. It didn't go in as much as you wanted it to, but I think that with the G League, the right development program, I think he can be a solid basketball player in about 3 years. I know Fran Fraschilla coined the phrase he's 2 years away or however many years away from being away. Well, to me, that's what AJ Johnson looks like. But again, the young fella, he came in, I think he originally committed to Texas. And like I said, he has a lot of talent, just needs the right situation, needs an organization to be patient with him. And also on his end, he has to understand that, it's a journey. I have to stay focused and I have to continue to get better and dedicate the time and the effort to improve my body and to improve my game. When I look at him and I think of a situation like who has a good development program, I wouldn't say Houston has a good development program, but there wouldn't be any minutes for him down the road. But like if he ended up in a situation like Utah, I'd have to look at what Utah has for like second round picks. But I know that they do a good job. And also I understand that they if they don't share a facility, their facility is very close to the Utah Jazz facility, that being the Salt Lake City Stars. So like you get him in the right program that's close enough to the big club in the NBA. I think that the young man can play, and I think he can get better. And ultimately, he's a combo guard that you have off the bench. He can score, but again, he's a few years away. Now, before we get to the next group of guys, this segment is brought to you again by LinkedIn. So when you're hiring for your business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even faster and easier and quicker. 2.5 small businesses around the world use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming on YouTube for free. For the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Sports Network, your team every day. Now, last segment, I talked about two guards, AJ Johnson and KJ Simpson. Now, in this next segment, we're going to talk about a couple of wings. Now, again, if you've listened to me before, hopefully you have listened to me before. But the first guy that I'm going to mention, I know that he was coming into this draft cycle. He had a lot of buzz. A lot of people were talking about him. He was projected to be number one, top 5 on a lot of boards. I wasn't as high on him. And unfortunately, he just got off to a terrible, terrible start. And that young man is Justin Edwards from Kentucky. 6'8", small forward, left-handed. He definitely looks the part. But unfortunately, at Kentucky, with a lot of guys at Kentucky, it's sometimes it looks like it's survival of the fittest, and it just took him a long time to get started. His first 12 games at Kentucky, he started off shooting 9 for 35 from 3. He struggled to find his role. He looked lost at times, and I guess you could say some of his weaknesses were exposed as a shot creator for himself, and it didn't help that they had DJ Wagner, they had Reed Shepherd, and they had Rob Dillingham, and along with seniors who were getting shots up. So it looked like he got the short end of the stick, and it definitely affected his confidence. It took him some time, but he did eventually find his way. And while he did shoot, and he started off shooting 9 for 35 from 3, he ended up shooting 36% from 3 on the season. So I want to give Justin Edwards his props, because he could have easily pouted, transferred, sulked, did all the things that you did not want him to do. But he stayed and he hung around. I believe he had a 10 for 10 game against, I want to say it was Vanderbilt. And, obviously that definitely boosted his percentages, but, he stuck with it. And ultimately, I think, he is definitely a professional basketball player. The measurements are good. The jump shot looks good. And it just looks like he has settled into his role. Now, he just reminds me of a guy that when it's all said and done, I wouldn't be surprised eventually down the line if the jump shot is legit and he is really, a good shooter. He finds himself starting at some point in his career. And again, depending on how the cards may be dealt, he could end up starting in a situation this year. Like he has prototypical size. He looks the part. He's 6'8", and guys that are 6'8" that can make jump shots, they play. Guys that are 6'8" that can defend, they play. We watched the game today. Derrick Jones Jr., while he wasn't making shots, like his defensive impact was there. So ultimately, I do feel like Justin Edwards has an opportunity to start. And while I have him pegged as a second-round pick, I honestly would not be surprised if somebody took a long look at him in the late 20s. It's only fair that if we can boost a Johnny Furphy off of a hot stretch of games, and he ended up cooling back down, and he, struggles to create for himself. And I don't think he had the best measurements as far as wingspan, according to the combine numbers. I think it's only fair that we don't just judge him for his hot stretch of games and dismiss what Justin Edwards did when he finally figured it out. So while I do have Justin Edwards as a second-round pick, I do feel like he may get an opportunity as a first-round pick. Again, talent is there. It's going to come down to not just him, with a lot of guys. It's going to come down to the right situation and, season opportunity. And again, the right situation may happen. Unfortunately, guys get hurt, but you got to get in there and you have to make shots. So hopefully Justin Edwards learns from that experience from Kentucky, and hopefully he found himself, and it's just going to come down to him being able to play off the ball at a high level, cutting. And it looked like he started to kind of figure that out. I know he was a little hesitant, but, in the NBA, roles are definitely defined. And, if we're drafting him in the 20s, or if we're a good team in the second round, we already have things established as far as where he's going to go, where he's going to play. So I'm rooting for Justin Edwards. I hope he figures it out, and I hope he finds his way. The next young man, the next wing that I'm going to speak of is a guy that's really under the radar. He played for the Mexico City El Capitans, Malik Lewis. Now, this guy is extremely raw, and he's extremely young. I believe he just turned 19 this calendar year. But you know what? He has a lot of defensive potential. If you get an opportunity to Google him, like he has a highlight block tape where he's just flying and he's defending. And again, the easiest role that translates in the NBA, in my opinion, outside of the rim runners, are the 3-and-D wings, and that's what Malik Lewis looks like. Again, very raw, but he has tons of defensive potential. And while he for the Capitans, he played with some veteran guys. He was defined in his role as a 3-and-D guy. So basically, played off the point guards, and he stood in the corner a lot. But I will say he does show some flashes of being able to create for himself. And again, wherever he's drafted, if he's drafted, I would not be surprised if he spent another season in the G League. It just is what it is. It's hard to crack that rotation, especially at the beginning of the year, because teams are trying to figure out how good we're going to be, or if we're going to be good at all, and we're going to play some of the other guys. But I would not be surprised if he ended up in the G League again. But at the same time, he's like how I spoke of in the first segment, AJ Johnson, where it's going to take him a couple years to figure it out. But the talent is definitely there. He's athletic. He's long. He plays extremely hard. And, I feel like a smart organization is going to get behind him and put in the hours, the time to nurture his talent, because, like I said, the defensive potential is there. The jump shot looks really, really, really good. He shot 34% from three, and that is at the NBA 3. Now, we can talk about some of the other guys, some of the other youngsters who play for the Ignite. I believe Tyler Smith was the only one that shot 34% from three. We know Ron didn't shoot that well from three. And we know that Matas, who was billed as being a shooter, he struggled from that NBA three-point line. But Malik Lewis, the young fella, he shot 34% from three. So, he's getting you almost a block a game, almost a steal a game, big-time athlete, a lot of potential. Like I said, if you're in the second round and you feel like, your team is drafting somebody you haven't heard of them, just remember what I told you. It's a couple years away, but the talent is definitely there. I've heard good things about him and his work ethic. So it'll be interesting to see. But so before I finish up here, let me tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships. Also, it keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, so in the last segment, I spoke on, two wings, Justin Edwards and Malik Lewis. I know we have a rundown for the YouTube viewers, but I'm going to defer a little bit from that and mention another wing who I was extremely high on early on. And I've kind of since cooled on him, but I still believe in his talent. I think that the situation that he was in was a for lack of a better term, a humbling experience. And the young man I'm talking about is Trent Flowers. I know that he went to Australia with the idea in mind that he was going to play point guard, and I think he found out that playing point guard at that level, at the professional level in Australia, is a lot tougher than what you're doing in high school. I mean, you got to go up against guys like Jordan Crawford. He's 5'5", dynamo. You got to Matthew Dellavedova, NBA champion. Like, it's a big, big jump. And when he did try to play point guard, Trenton Flowers he was sped up a lot. And ultimately, the team with their Next Stars program was like, you know what? That's not going to work. You're going to have to find another way to contribute. So what Trenton Flowers did was he slid to the wing and he played what we do in the NBA or over here. He played the 3-and-D role. And he shot the ball pretty well. Now, with the jump shot going in, that's a great sign for one. But ultimately, I think the game is still really, really fast for him. But he shot 39% from three. You'll always take that. And he is like he kind of reminds me in a sense of Cody Williams, where there's not much change in direction when he handles the ball. And it's straight line. I'm getting to my right hand. And while he is athletic, he kind of struggles to finish. He doesn't have that launching pad that Ron has, that separates Ron from him and what I think is Cody Williams. So Trenton Flowers at the next level, in my opinion. Now, again, there is some ball handling ability. I know he did handle the ball some in high school. He handled the ball a lot in AAU. But ultimately, I think he is going to be a catch and shoot, one dribble pull up slasher. He is athletic. I think he tested very well at the combine. I want to see like upper 30-inch vertical. His wingspan wasn't the longest, but I think he was like a +2 or 3. But ultimately, I think Trenton Flowers is going to settle in again, like Malik Lewis, like Justin Edwards. I think he's going to settle into the 3-and-D role. So with that said, like he just, the game has to slow down for him. And, like a lot of these other guys, I do think he's going to spend time in the G League. And I don't think there's anything wrong with spending time in the G League. Ultimately, you want to get better. We can sit here and say, Jordan Poole, he spent time in the G League. He came back a better player. The Utah Jazz, they send guys to the G League all the time and they come back. So it's like, I don't want fans, and I definitely don't want the young guys to think that going to the G League is a demotion. Like, you're trying to get better. You're trying to get to your second contract. You want to think long term. And that's easy to say as a dude doing a podcast, but it's really the truth. You got to stay focused. So when I see Trenton Flowers, I do see some Kelly Oubre. Again, he's not as explosive. He doesn't have the launching pad that Kelly Oubre has, but he's somebody who is going to be like an athletic 3-and-D guy who can score, but not necessarily like a playmaker for others. But he definitely needs to improve just in the half court in the game. He needs to slow down. I feel like he's somebody you definitely can take a flyer on in the second round. Again, it's going to take him a couple years to figure it out. But if he's knocking down, if that jump shot is legit, I think he may be able to crack a 12-man rotation. But it's going to take some time. But ultimately, the game has to slow down for him. Now, I got out of order, and that's fine. I'm the only one doing the show tonight. I can do whatever I want to do. The last person I want to tell you about, and I feel like I'm I always feel like I'm only going to talk about people because I'm the only one I listen to. But Zachary Pirin out of France, in the second division of France. I know he had a scholarship. I believe he played at Illinois for a little bit, and he left. Zachary Pirin is a center. He can legit play basketball. I kid you not. On that French under-18 team that featured Alex Sarr, probably the number 1 or number 2 pick, depending on, who's involved. that featured Zachary Risache, who some people think is the number 1 or number 2 pick, depending on who you ask. Zachary Perrin was probably the best player on that under 18 team. Now, let me tell you about Zach. That's my guy. On Twitter, my French followers, they said Mangars. That means my guy. All right. So he's got grab and go potential. Grab and go potential. He can grab the rebound. He can push the break. And he's athletic. And he's a real life like big man. Like he's not. Let me rephrase that. He wants to dunk everything. And he uses both hands to the point where you don't know what hand he is when he catches the ball in the paint. He can pass like very well. And he's athletic. He's got a good touch in the paint. Now, going into this season, he was not stretching the floor at all. Not one bit. And even now, he's still, I think he shot 64% from the free throw line in the second division in France. But he shot 37% from 3 on 75 attempts. I paused for real. Like, that growth is amazing. Because if you'd have told me he was going to, his shot it doesn't look very pretty. But, like, he's really shooting threes, and he was really making threes in the second division in France. And again, we talk about guys, and it's not a knock on anybody, but we talk about guys, oh, he has potential to do this, he has potential to do that. And then, like, we look at the numbers, and he shot like 28%. And he shot 28% on minimal attempts. Like, he shot 75 threes in, I believe, 40 games. So he was getting enough of them up. But ultimately, if I'm taking him, he's a rim runner. He's a dunker. If you get him with the right point guard and pick and roll, I promise you he's dunking everything. And I'm like, worst case scenario, he might be like Jericho Sims. Now, I think he's more skilled than Jericho Sims, but we know Jericho Sims, if the ball comes near him at the square, he's going to dunk it because he's a big-time athlete. Now, Perrin is not that kind of athlete, but he's definitely athletic. He has back-to-the-basket game. So is he, are we going to feature him on the block? No. But if you switch, I feel like he is good enough to score on the box. I think he is highly slept on. Yeah, he's highly slept on. He's one of my favorite players to watch. He's probably my favorite French player in this draft. And I just feel like he has a lot of talent. And we look at, again, I'm recording this here on a Friday night. We just watched the Mavs play. And I just saw Daniel Gafford, who was drafted in the second round, have an impact. 6'10", bouncy shot blocker. Is Perrin as bouncy as Gafford? No, but he's not a bad athlete by any means. So, if you're listening, Zachary Perrin, all right? If he's drafted, which I think he should be, his highlight tape that they're going to flash on ESPN, hopefully they don't cut to a Taco Bell commercial like they did with Jokic, but his highlight tape is going to be him bodying people and dunking on people. So remember that name, Zachary Perrin, Mongar. Shout out to my French people out there. All right, well, that concludes this episode, but before I go, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and is now also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts on Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, well, it's been fun. Tune in. We will see you guys next week, or maybe you'll hear us next week. NBA Big Board signing off. This is James. Shout out to my man Leaf. Shout out to my man Rich. Shout out to my brother Ralph. We are